welcome back to my channel. My name is Regina, and in today's video we are building a trellis for blackberries. So it is a very windy day, so I hope the audio comes out alright. If it's not perfect, I apologize. But the thing to remember about trellises is that the design of it isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that the trellis does what you need it to do. And so I need to build a trellis that's going to hold up my blackberry plant so that they can grow the way that they need to, keep them off the ground for the most part. So that's my goal in building this trellis. Now, I have watched several videos, seen several different designs, and what I do when I watch those is I take elements from those, I look at the materials that I have in my home that may work, that will require me to buy the least amount of things, and then I figure out a design that's going to work and serve the purpose that I need to do. And so that's why I wanted to show you guys how I'm doing it so that you can take those elements and kind of do the same thing. It doesn't matter if your trellis looks just like someone else's for that particular purpose. There are lots of different ways to trellis vegetables, lots of different ways to trellis blackberries. But the thing is, if your trellis does what you need it to do, then it's a great trellis. So that being said, let me show you how I'm doing mine. So I've actually started it. I've built a half of it, and I need to finish it up, and that's what I wanted to show y'all, because I wanted to make sure the way that I was planning to do it would work. And I'm using, so let's start off with the materials. To build my trellis, I am using eye bolts. I need a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these. Just a little closer. These are eye bolts. It's just a little bolt with the with the bolt thing on the end. Y'all, I don't even have vocabulary. But yes, eye bolts, and then a turnbuckle. I have a couple of these. I'm using those on each side, so I needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turnbuckles. So essentially, where the wire comes together on one of the sides of that wire, I have the turnbuckle to make sure I can get it tight. And then I'm using steel wire. This is 9-gauge galvanized steel, I believe. I actually bought this last season to use for my muscadines, but I changed my mind on how I was going to trellis those, so I had this already at home. It wasn't expensive. I want to say this is, I don't know how many feet this is, but it was like $20 for all of this. It was very inexpensive. I got it at Tractor Supply. And then U-posts. So just so you know the difference, T-posts do not have the holes, and they're a lot thicker and stronger. The U-posts are thinner. They're hollow, like thinner metal, and they have holes drilled into them. So these are U-posts. This one is about 5 feet. So I'm about 5'4". I believe this is a 5-foot U-post. I had 3 of them already. I'd gotten some last year from my mom that they had from a fence that they had and taken down. And so I had 3, so I just needed to get 1 more. So that's why I'm using these, to be honest, because I already had most of them and I just need to get 1. These are inexpensive as well. I want to say this one I had to go buy was like $6 at Lowe's. And the bolts, of course, were a couple of dollars. So this trellis is probably costing me, if I add up all the materials, it's probably about, if you had to go buy everything, then maybe you're looking at about $50. But odds are you can build it out of materials you have. Like, for instance, I have a lot of 8-foot furring strips that I use for my tomatoes. I'm going to grow fewer indeterminate tomatoes this year, so I'm going to have some of those, and I'll be using some of those to make trellises for my green beans. So the key is use what you have, start there, and think about, okay, she's using U-posts. Do I have to use those, or could I use something else for that purpose? So you could use wood, posts. You could use 4x4s if you have those lying around. So when you look at the design, look at how I'm doing it, but just understand that you could accomplish it in different ways too. So I want you to keep your mind open there. And the other material that I have, of course, is a post pounder. Oh, this thing is mad heavy, and this helps me pound the posts in much stronger than I would be able to do on my own. I bought this last year to pound in my posts for my tomato plants, and I've since used it on my trellis for I've used it actually for everything. I use it on my trellis for my muscadines. I've used it everywhere I've needed to pound a post in the ground. So this is very helpful to have around. So the trellis, let me show you what I've done so far, and then I will get started. So here's the trellis that we're building. As you can see, I have the U-post hammered into the ground, and then the eye-bolt right here, and then the wire, and it's a very strong wire. I just have that pulled through here and bent together. It's not going to come out because that wire is not going to bend on its own. And then I pulled the wire apart as much as I could. It was a little bent because I bent it a little too far at first. And then if you come down, that wire comes all the way down here to the end. And here's the other U-post and another eye bolt. And then this is where I have the turnbuckle here. Now the turnbuckle is here this way. The reason why you use the turnbuckle is because it allows you to tighten the wire more than you can just by pulling it. So I hook the wire through here, and then I can turn this turnbuckle, and you make sure you have it pulled all the way apart before you attach it. You pull the wire as tight as you can, and then you can turn the turnbuckle, and that tightens the wire even further by turning this, because this screw comes inward and it pulls the wire as tight as you possibly can. And so that's how it holds together. So I have a wire here. After pounded in, this thing is probably about 4 feet high, 4.5, if that. So I have one wire going across at the top, and then another wire going across at the bottom. That one's probably about a foot off the ground to hold the plants up as well. And then I have a wire in the middle because I have my plants. If I just had one row of blackberry plants, I could do this with just one wire. But I have my plants here in a block, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then also my raspberry plants here, 1 and 2. Then I needed to have 2 wires because they're not all growing together in a row. And so I decided to put one in the middle, a shorter one, because I did have these U-posts around, so that would give some extra support on the side of the plant. And that one's done the exact same way, except it's just one wire across the top. And so what I'm going to show you how to build is this one. I'm going to do the one on the other side for the other plants. And so that's how this is coming together. This wire is crazy strong. Now you might be able to do this with string. I'm not sure how that would hold up once the plant is loaded with fruit, but you could possibly use string for this. I'm using the wire because I have it and I know it's going to be strong enough. Now the blackberries that I'm growing, these are Prime Arc Freedom blackberries. So they are an erect variety, but erect doesn't quite mean erect. It doesn't mean it's just going to stand up unsupported. As you can see, like this branch here is flimsy, hanging down. This branch is actually from this plant over here. So, and this doesn't even have fruit on it yet. So they need something to support them, to keep them up off the ground. And then the raspberry varieties I have, I believe they will grow erect as well, but it's kind of the same thing. So I just want to make sure once they grow, they have a trellis to support them as well. And then I've left some space on the side here because raspberries, I know they're going to extend and grow underground to, as you can see, like I have a thing there where the raspberry rhizomes have gone underground and started to grow up. So I want to leave space for them to expand. All right, so now let's get to building. So step 1 is pounding this thing into the ground. So I can get it a certain ways without using this, and then I have to pound it in. And the key is I want to make it about the same height as outlet. Doesn't matter if it's exactly the same height, but I want it to be similar. So it's a teeny bit lower than that one, but not that much. This one's here. That one's a little bit higher, but it's not that big of a deal because I'm not connecting them to each other, so they don't have to be the exact same. All right, next up, eye bolts. now I'm gonna put on the turnbuckles. Make sure they're all the way loosened before I do so.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, bolts are on. I'll have to get my little pliers to screw this on. It's giving me a hard time. But bolts are on. All right, so now for the wire. Now, I probably should have measured when I did this the last time, but the wire, I'm just gonna bend it through the top bolt and then thread it down. So, I can bend this with my hand. It's not too strong for me to do that, but it does take some effort. And then I'm just going to pull this down to see about what I will need to make it long enough. Now for the bolt cutters. So it's okay to have it too long, you just don't want it to be too short. So let me go ahead and cut this bolt, and then I'm going to reposition the camera so you guys can see how I tighten this with the turnbuckle. Okay, so I have it hooked here. I pulled it as tight as I could with my hand, and one thing I didn't do on this one that I did on that one was when I drove the stake in, I kind of slanted it outward a little bit so that when I pulled it, it would just come together straight. Forgot to do that, and I don't want to redo this one. It'll be fine either way because it doesn't pull a whole lot. But I have this in, and I bent it slightly. I can always cut off this excess, and I always err on the side of having it too long because I'm just paranoid. But if you notice here, this turnbuckle is outstretched, and so this will allow me to tighten it up because my hands can only pull it so far because this wire is a pretty strong wire. It was hard for me to bend it. So now, I'll just bend this. So now I can tighten it. take the tag off, huh? So this is pulling the wire even tighter. Okay, so now the wire is pulled as tight as it needs to be. And keep in mind, this is holding up blackberries. So, and these are in pretty deep. So, I have a pretty tight fit here, so I know this is going to be able to support my plants. So now I'm just going to cut off some of the excess. Okay, so with the way I'm fighting with this wire, I hope this tells you guys, this is why it's better to build your trellis when your plants are still small. These plants were already big when I planted them here because I had them in containers, but it's way easier so you don't risk damaging your plant while you build the trellis. So, go. Wire is much longer than I need, but it's fine. Let's get that. Trying to get my knees all the way wet, so I have to leave the house today. So again, I'm trying to get it as tight as I can without hurting my plants in the process. All right. Now, I can let the turnbuckle do the rest. Hopefully this is easy. So now this trellis is complete. No crazy engineering marvel. It's just something to hold up these plants, and it's doing a great job. I've already been able to prop them up. I'm considering actually adding one more wire right in the middle of the top and the bottom, because I think that could be helpful for the canes that are getting to a certain height. But we'll see how it goes. So I'll just grab a couple more eye bolts and turnbuckles. I already have the wire, and add that to it. This took me about 20 minutes to do, 25 I think, to do, and that included positioning the camera, adjusting, making sure things were being recorded. So I think it'd probably take even less than that in other circumstances, but I'm very happy with the result. Let me walk you around so you can see it up close. So, simple, doesn't have to be complicated in order to work. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps this channel and video get out to more gardeners that would find this content helpful. Until we meet again, thanks, and have a great one. Bye.